Okay, welcome back. And this video is going to be continuing from the previous one where I answered a few questions. And this is going to be a look into what I did to get into security and build some skills, or at least give me a direction to go into. One quick word from our producer. This is our producer. Hi, say hi. You don't want to say much? Okay, that all you want to say? Okay, I'm going to take a quick break and we're going to get started on the video. So on the first thing, once I kind of knew I wanted to work in security or be on a security team doing information security related things, to start talking to people, have a casual conversation, just different events and stuff like that. I've got to say one thing that worked for me was I've always kind of done or enjoyed the community aspect of different things. A long time ago, I went to Kplug meetings, the Kernel Panic Linux user group. Try saying that real fast 3 times. In my sysadmin days, I went to a bunch of different Microsoft related conferences, and I did find myself, this kind of when I started knowing I wanted to be in security, was I'd go to these conferences and I'd happen to find a security talk here or there, where somebody was talking about doing, applying penetration testing or doing penetration testing against certain things. And that definitely got my interest up. And I was like, oh, back when I was doing supporting SharePoint and building up environments, and I go to a conference or two, and there might be a security talk or two, and I'd start showing up, like going to security talks. Oh, this stuff's kind of cool. Oh, wow. I learned things like using wget and different pen testing tools people use on engagements when assessing SharePoint sites, and that was pretty cool. And which is what I brought up a point about other non-InfoSec related things I go to in IT. If there was a vendor doing a talk that happened to have a security component to it, I'd just start going. And I'd ask people there, and some of those questions get a little bit biased because a lot of them are on the sales side of things. So they're going to tell you their product's the greatest thing ever, and you should just buy theirs, and you buy it and everything will be fine right away. Okay. But with that, I learned a lot of different terminology and tools and how people did things. And I got to talk to more people, and basically talking to a lot more people broadened my base of information, and I could filter from there. And with the conferences, it wasn't just DEF CON. There were a bunch of other ones. Your miles may vary depending on where you're located geographically. If you're into the going to conference thing, your options are open up nowadays, because a lot of these conferences will do webcasts. I highly recommend getting outside your comfort zone in that aspect, and this is gonna apply to a lot of things. So I'd go to these conferences, and there's stuff I thought I was interested in. Then there'd be talks I wasn't quite familiar with a lot of what they were talking about. A lot of it would go over my head, and I decided to go to those talks. That's kind of where the whole my mantra of run towards the hard shit comes from. It's not some deep motivational thing you're going to hear the motivational speakers and gurus talk about. No, it's not really that deep. I saw the harder stuff, and I was like, okay, that looks more interesting to me, and I'm not scared to get my hands dirty. So that's with conferences. The other thing I noticed with valuable conferences, especially in the before time, going to a lot of conferences gave me a broad base of information to work with, or which kind of content I was interested in and the kind I wasn't. Going into security, or a lot of people thinking I'm going to do this cool job or that cool job, or you're not sure what you want to do yet. So the more you have a broad baseline of what you are familiar with or not, the better you can filter out and turn that into what you actually want to do. And that may manifest itself in a lot of different ways. Some ways that may not be predictable based on what you know today. Oh, you know what I find funny too? So I'd participate in a lot of these communities when I was doing SharePoint support and other things like that in the past, but I didn't actually work at the conference. I would just go as an attendee, see a bunch of cool tech, tinker with some things here and there, meet some people. A good time. I definitely started noticing things in security when I started volunteering for events. A lot of cases, the volunteering got me in conferences. So besides Vegas, it's famous for getting full to capacity, and probably even more so now. One year I wanted to go, I couldn't make it, and the next year I wanted to go, and it was full. They needed more volunteers. So what did I do? Jumped on that bandwagon. I know it goes against the whole acronym of the Navy standing for Never Again Volunteer Yourself. But there's also another thing that is common with a lot of us military folks is failing to follow instructions, and we get a lot of interesting stories and scars if we make it through those moments. So with that, I volunteer myself for a lot of different events. You'll meet a different pool of people that do different skills. If you're in a location where there's a lot of government DoD work, you're going to get one type of form of security people that you're going to be talking to. If you're in a place that has a lot more private sector companies, particularly the small startups, recruit from say colleges or places that work with a lot of biotech, there's going to be, depending on where you are geographically, that may determine some of the stuff you get exposed to in terms of what you want to learn. And with that, and going to conferences, same thing there. Like if you're in an area with a lot of DoD and government related stuff, you're going to get a lot of talks that are centered for that environment because that's the audience you're catering to. So going to a conference or two outside your region, you get exposed stuff. I did a exploit dev class I went to Circle City Con a few years ago and did exploit dev class. Shout out to Nerd Prof. Follow him on Twitter. Good guy. He did a class. The exploit dev class is basically teaching you how to do a buffer overflow, and pretty basic. But I was like, okay, I'll sign up for this. It was like $5 for the course. Why not? And I kind of learned the basics of buffer overflow. I got better at it over the years. Now I can explain it a little bit better. But that's another story for another time. And then there was DerbyCon. I had a lot of fun. I went to that one 3 times. Twice I volunteered for it. And that was a lot of fun. And I got to meet a lot of awesome people. It's sad that it's gone, but as these conferences may come and go, new ones come up. And then the last one I worked wasn't DEF CON 27. It was actually San Diego B-Sides in 2020. I worked that one right before the quarantine started. So that was quite an interesting time. A lot of people didn't know a lot about what was going on at the time, but it ended up working out. So going back to the networking thing and how volunteering paid off. So I volunteered for a couple events, and next thing you know, I ended up getting selected to volunteer for DEF CON, working at Florida doing physical security. A lot of fun, awesome stuff. Shout out to the Goom fam. I don't know what hand symbol. I don't know. Whatever. Let's see. So that's pretty much all I had to say about conferences and volunteering. Definitely getting yourself out there helps. It's not a hard requirement, but it will help. At the very least, you're going to learn what you don't want to do. It's one thing that helped out for me when I joined the Navy a long time ago. I knew I wanted to work around like tech and computers and stuff. But the other side of that, if you learn nothing else from, other veterans can attest to this. If nothing else in the military, you learn what you don't want to do and what you don't want to deal with. So there's a couple of ways you can take things in as far as conferences you go to. You can figure out what you do want to do, and you can conversely figure out what you don't want to do. So with that, one thing I did in between all this time was started to kind of gravitate towards people doing the same thing. That was crucial. Going on my own, I go to conferences, try to filter stuff out. But it really didn't hit me as far as what I wanted to do until I started hanging out with other people that were kind of in the same path. Now, granted, a lot of the guys I was hanging out with at the time were more on the offensive path, and that's what kind of got me interested in what I'm driving toward now. Was like pen testing, red teaming, stuff like that. A lot of fun stuff. And I think that's what a lot of people get into when they want to get into security. They see like Mr. Robot, but the reality is much different from that. You learn the reality this is where the filtering part comes into play, because you're starting to filter all this stuff out. Back to the whole geographic thing, and this is where some constraints come in. Out here in California, it's like city, a lot of desert, another city, a lot of desert, another city. It's not like the East Coast where everything's real close to each other, where you can drive over to another state in 30 minutes. Um, and one thing people notice out here, so like if you're in a major metro city, you're probably going to find what you need. But if you're outside of one or in one of the in one of the inland counties, like say Riverside, San Bernardino, or if you're up north, like Merced, I don't know much about Merced, but basically anywhere that's outside of the major cities, you run into this problem where you're not necessarily close to everything. You might have an interest, but you're not close to it. And that's where, like, for Southern California, if you're in Riverside, particularly the south end of Riverside County, which kind of spreads because it gets into either being close to San Diego or close to LA, depending on what part of Riverside you're in. And it's really hard to get to. You're not close to many things, so you're having to navigate that. I knew someone a while back. I was kind of I kind of like talked through along the way and helped them out, pointing them direction. And they're like, I'm not near anything, so it's hard to go to events in San Diego or LA. And I'm like, well, maybe make your own. And this is more when things are more physical and in person. Nowadays, you have stuff like Slack, Discord, and I got into my really short rant about Slack and Discord. For my own sanity, I might keep a couple of them active at a time and turn them off if I'm not actively on there as much. And it fluctuates depending on what I'm working on at the given moment. The next thing I have on this, oh yeah, so the network of people I hung out with. So this is what most of my this is what a lot of my weekends look like with this crew. Friday, Saturday night, a bunch of us going to hardware stores like a Lowe's, Target, Home Depot, Walmart, basically any place that had locks. So we'd buy a bunch of locks, meet at somebody's house. And by the way, this was really helpful because some of the people we were hanging out with were under 21, so we can't necessarily just go to a bar and get a bunch of beers and stuff. We get pizzas and whatever and meet at somebody's house. And then if you were to walk in, you'd see a bunch of us either doing just picking locks with a bunch of music on, or us in hoodies on our laptops doing a CTF. Like it was pretty fun times. Like you'd walk in and see like a dozen people or more with hoodies on, the lights are low, and we're all just like doing our thing. It was pretty fun. That was really helpful. And the groups come and go and they drift. We also would do things like do weekly hangouts just on Google Hangout or whatever web conferencing thing, working on a box, talking about a tool or something we want to work on. And getting in that frame of mind, basically you're kind of nurturing this like a job or a pet in a sense, because you're giving a lot of time and care and attention and feeding. And that's where I answer a question about passion. It's really hard if you don't have that motivation, it's going to be a lot harder. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it will be a lot harder and more painful if you don't already have the motivation in you to push forward. Let's see. Oh yeah, so now once I got my foot in the door, I'm gonna share a screen here. Okay. So, by the way, during all this, I had a blog going, so I got my blog up, and I'll post stories in there. I'm not actively doing this like on a weekly basis at this point because I'm finding I'm much more comfortable with Markdown. If I have a technical thing to do, I'm going to put it in. I'm going to make a video on it and add some stuff in GitHub on a separate repo. But the blog is more or less I'm going to be taking notes. And I will have a purpose for it in the future. Not ready to push all that out yet. But there will be some more stuff in here. But feel free to check it out every now and then. What I was doing, and this kind of goes back in that whole augmenting your resume or skills. With this blog, I could go through different stories. So I posted some stories and talk about different topics and things I've broken down in the past. maybe a CTF or a conference I went to. I'd add some notes, and I'd also try and add some stuff in here. I started getting back on the making videos after being asked for a number of times about getting your way around the community and noticing, oh wait, I made 2 of these already. So this is where the videos are coming in. I'm not going to be making any more blog posts about navigating community. I'm just going to tell people to subscribe here. So with that out of the way, let's get to the meat of it. So breaking down that last question from the previous video, now you're in security, what next? So I basically put together a spreadsheet, and this kind of like, I used to keep track of what I was working on and get myself my own progress report. I originally, a long time ago, was working with somebody who was showing me some stuff, as they were mentoring me, and this is one of the people I was hanging out with. They showed me kind of their rough plan of what they would do. I think it was by month, and I saw it, and I was like, I took a glimpse at it, and I didn't want to copy it verbatim. I saw what was in there, what he was tracking, and I figured I'm going to create my own system. And some people have asked me about the spreadsheet in the past. I finally uploaded it, and previously I wouldn't, not because I had something against them or didn't want to share the information. I just wanted to kind of do the thing that was going to be effective and give screenshots to show, hey, here's what I put together, and make your own system. That's what's going to drive it, because if you make your own system, you're going to have more incentive to commit to it and keep up with it. So anyway, I'll explain this spreadsheet. The first part of it is the more strategic side of things. And what I did was I marked each of these are the basically categories I want to break down. I figured I wanted a little more than a literal handful of things to work on, and a little bit lofty, sure, and not as focused, but I'll get to that. What I did was I came up with these different metrics, and whether it's significance, how important is this to you, how measurable or how tangible is this objective, whether or not, or how easy it's to attain, what the direct benefit is going to be for my resume, and how long it's going to take to achieve the goal. And what I would do is I'd rank each one of those based on these things. So, these are the rankings based on a number of these topics. So for each of these categories, I give it a rank, and then I'd add this up. And I know this is going to be this is a lot of information to take in, but this is on GitHub. You don't have to do this. This is just what I do and how I do things. So for each category, I'd rank what I wanted to do. And then what I do, this is over the course of a year, by the way. So these are the ranks. So over here on the tactical side, here's where things are ranked again. I basically gave myself something to do each month. I didn't have to go all the way down the rabbit hole. And it's kind of funny that I didn't even start or take my first CISP attempt until early 2020 and hadn't even started reading the stuff. So this wasn't necessarily the highest goal I had in mind. But what I do is for each month, if it made the total points for the month, I'd give myself points, and this would add up. So, and this is the max amount of points I can get in each category over the course of a year. So each month where it's highlighted in green is where I did something. I worked on a box. I might have studied something. I think these are videos I was watching, conferences to go to. And so for each topic, I could see where my progress was. So over the course of 2017, I got through 64% of this. There's no bad or good to this. This is the first time I did this. I figured I'd get a better comparison comparing to the following year. But I ended up finishing 4 tasks a month. So that told me exactly, okay, if I'm finishing 4, I probably want to dial this number down to 4 things. And because right now it looks like I'm overwhelmed, and there's other, I'm factoring in life too. So there's other events that may or may not come up. And this isn't necessarily spending an entire month on this. these are all achievable things. This just meant time spent on these things each month. I may or may not have finished all these boxes. I think I finished those too. So what I would do is over the course of the year, add these things up. This is what my total was. Let's see. I think I did this in 2018 too. Yep, same deal. So this time I broke down, I rounded up to 5 instead of rounding down to 4 for this one. And more adding some events. Let's see here, web hacking. Yeah, so I kind of changed my focus a bit, but didn't really make it as far. This one I got through before I stopped about August and got 37% of the way through. So it didn't work out as well, but I did learn from this as one, putting this together. 2, I also learned that having a system on a computer didn't necessarily help as well. And 3, definitely going to less goals. And a number of those different topics isn't as relevant as me getting it done. So there wasn't really a good or bad. This is me grading myself. And the best part about this is it's unbiased. I'm doing it all using a form of math, and it's data driven. So this was helpful in that aspect. I'd probably, looking back on it, this is a good idea. I think I would have scaled it back, but now I've kind of got that now. So instead of doing this in Excel, I now have this on a board. One thing I have found helpful for my studying is having stuff written down. I'll go through this at some point, but all the stuff after I think my first failure for OSCP, I started putting stuff in a journal and just writing stuff down. This isn't necessarily showing a bunch of tools and stuff. I literally just like wrote down what was going on when I was working on a box or different things, or that day, like mood, really bad mood, got a migraine, I'm going to include it. Or holy shit, I just found this thing. That's cool. So this has been helpful, and I have this in this repo right here, explaining the whole spreadsheet. Like I said, and this is exactly why I did this. So I read the book Getting Things Done. By the way, it took me nearly 2 years to finally get around to reading it, and I didn't read it. I ended up getting the audiobook and powering through it. The book had some good points in it. Get stuff out of your head and into a system of some sort, learning to prioritize. But clearly, I was not good at taking in all the information in the book because it took me 2 years to finish it. Take that with however you will. So yeah, I put in some screenshots as well on this page, kind of explaining that spreadsheet if you're interested. I did finally upload the spreadsheet. If you're interested, feel free to take a look at it. No pressure. So what am I doing now? So I mentioned I write this stuff down. I've got a couple of dry erase boards above here. I don't really feel like taking them down at the moment. But on one side, I've got tactical goals. And the other side, I have strategic goals. And tactical is more short-term, whatever's the immediate thing in front of me. Like right now, I've got a bunch of stuff on there prepping for CCSP. And the strategic one, I don't really change all that much. I might look at maybe every couple months or so, but it's written down and in front of me at my desk every day, so I see it all the time. So it keeps me focused. I've got some other stuff on the board too, but mostly stuff related to like, if I'm going to put whatever my next goal is or the thing to check off on the strategic box, I do most of my writing on the tactical board, breaking down how I'm going to attack something. And that's been helpful too. What I say often is what I lack in a particular skill, I make up for in preparation and organizing. I've gotten much better at that over the years, so I use that to my advantage. With that out of the way, that's pretty much all I have. I'll see you next time. We're going to be doing.
Hey, let's do Get Help. What? Get Help? No, come on, you love it. I hate it.
With that, I'm out of here.